Okay. Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I was going through a reading phase. I was doing a lot of reading, specifically fiction. I started reading novels, or if you call it that, which was typically I read a lot of nonfiction. But this stage, for a couple of years, I was reading a lot of novels. Grisham, Louis L'Amour. I read most of the Reacher books. Just fun stuff, entertaining. But when I get through reading all this stuff, waiting to find another book to read, I would go online and see if the author, if it's a good book, I want to see the author, if he's done any interviews. And these guys talk all the time. They're on all over YouTube, whoever your author is. And so I kind of enjoyed that. Watch these guys explain what there's, what's behind the book or how they got started, kind of thing. So it was entertaining. But a lot of them spoke about how they learned to write, or what author was a big inspiration for them. Maybe a mentor or something like that. And then I would go see what those guys were doing. And so invariably they'd get into how they tell a story, how they put their book on paper, the mechanics behind it. And people, it's a free-flowing thing. That's a bunch of crap. There's a lot of mechanics behind this stuff. And that's fine. And so for a year, I was watching videos about how a story is told, how you tell a story. And not every story is told the same way. They don't all have the same mechanics. Like a romance novel is told a certain way. It's like a template. And then a murder mystery is one way, a thriller, sci-fi type, all different. Western's very, very basic, story of redemption, all this kind of thing. Has you can basically put an outline, and then you could free flow a story through that, but you got to cover these points. Certain points have to be addressed. And so I started to get a basic understanding of how a story is told. Specifically, the stories I like. Westerns, maybe murder mysteries or whatever. That has ruined me for just about every book, every story, every movie. It's just ruined it for me. A great example is Netflix has a lot of movies, stories that they produce on their own. The problem with Netflix is they're lazy and they're dealing with a short attention span audience. And so they skip a lot of steps. They don't take time to if there's 4 or 5 checkpoints for this type of story that you have to meet, you have to accomplish these issues, they'll just race right through them. And so they're not real, these foundational things aren't very strong in their story. They just assume you already know where it's going to go. It's just lazy. And so I watch a lot of stuff, and I get 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, I'm like, I already know how this thing plays out. There might be a little twist somewhere, but it's a waste of time. To the point where I'm probably going to cancel Netflix. If my dad's not using it, I'm going to cancel it. Because they're the worst. I think books, trying to read books. I tried to read a John Grisham, which I've read all the John Grisham up to like the 2000 or something. And I just can't, and he's a great writer. I'm not knocking the guy. But it's like you already know, you've seen the map, you know where this thing is going. It just killed it for me. I wish I never did this. Takes all the mystery out of it. A great example, now maybe you guys haven't had this, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. I watched the 5 seasons of Yellowstone. A month or 2 ago, I think I finished it. I was looking forward to seeing Yellowstone. Well, I like Kevin Costner. And that Tyler Sheridan guy is a pretty interesting writer. I think he did Sicario and a few of those things. But I was looking forward to seeing it. But I was reluctant in a sense that I said, I'm seeing horses and cowboy hats. I'm thinking Western. I'm thinking just automatic, just like a Western of some kind. Even though it's modern day. Western genre. But I'm looking forward to this thing, but I'm a little reluctant because I'm thinking, they're probably going to make it woke. This thing's probably going to be woke. It'll have, some fruity thing going through it or whatever the case is. They didn't do that. They really, they had current day issues, environmentalism and racism and all this kind of stuff they dealt with. But it wasn't the woke response, I thought. I believe it was an overreaction, the story, but that's a story. Typically, it's like now everyone's talking about how the loss of masculinity in our culture. So now everything, they over macho it to compensate. Overreaction. You see that in a lot of things. But I could not get into, I saw it as an entertaining story, this Yellowstone. Each episode is just a single little story. I never got into, wow, what's going to happen now? I wasn't compelled, hey, I want to see where this goes. Ooh, kind of thing. Typically in a Western genre story being told is a story of redemption. Okay. You've got someone who's not perfect, who's going through these trials and tribulations, but he's following a standard, or trying to live up to a standard that he may or may not accomplish by the end of his story, but it was going to be a redemption. Okay, he's paid his dues, or he's kind of turned the corner, whatever. You can really see this in Louis L'Amour. It's very basic. Yellowstone doesn't have that. It's not a redemptive story. It's a guy with a lot of trials and tribulations, but there's no. The only standard this Dutton is trying to follow is doesn't want to lose the ranch. That's it. But that's not enough of a redemptive story. Well, I take that back. Dutton is a murderer. The whole family's a bunch of drunks. They're estranged, all kinds. But that's it. That could be in any Western story. But the guy's a murderer. Okay, it's basically it's a criminal enterprise he's operating. Sure, there's all these bad people around him that want his land and trying to get over on him, but killing off your employees, throwing them off the cliff, and I'm going to have to kill this one or that one. I get all that. That's, but it's not a Western. And that's the mistake I made. The reason I could not get into Yellowstone, it's not a Western. I'm thinking it's a Western. Now, they were never trying to be a Western. It didn't say this is the Yellowstone, Western flair kind of. It just has Western clothing, some horses and cows, and a trailer, horse trailer kind of stuff. It's not a Western. That's the mistake I was making, because they're not hitting any of the checkpoints. They're not hitting any of the. This genre's way off. It's not a Western genre. It's a mafia movie. It's Sopranos. Okay. I think Sopranos did a better job of it. But if I looked at it from a Sopranos point of view, what was it? It's the Soprano guy, Gandolfini. He murdering people all the time. Cheating on his wife, all this kind of stuff, drugs, booze, all this. But I could see where that was going. I wasn't a big fan of Sopranos. But it wasn't trying to be a Western. There might have been some redemptive thing in there, but it's mafia. So if you look at the Yellowstone like it's a cattle mafia or land mafia, as like a Sopranos, then it makes more sense. Because I keep saying, when does this Dutton guy, he's supposed to be seeking redemption at some point here. Hey, he's got to make the deal with the right and wrong thing. Hey, I just want this thing for my family. What must I do? This kind of stuff. They go through this phase, let's say. But the guy's just a murderer. That's a psychopath. Now, I like Kevin Costner. I didn't used to, but all my favorite movies, he's in them. I got issues with his personal life, let's say, but Kevin Costner does a pretty good job at this. But every now and then they'll go back in time when he's a younger man, and I think it's Joshua Lucas is the actor, okay, playing him as a younger man. Kevin Costner cannot play the evil Dutton that he's to portray. He can't do that. I like him. He's good in parts of this role. I don't think he makes a good Dutton. Joshua Lucas, who plays him as a younger man, should have played the current older role, because he can do evil. He does a really good evil. He does it in his role as Dutton as a younger man. His dad and his older man is not as evil as his younger version. My opinion. Joshua Luke's a very good actor. But one, Yellowstone never claimed to be a Western. My mistake. But I just couldn't get into this. These guys they're all over the board on this thing. This is not, I'm waiting for the certain kind of thing, and this ain't it. Because it's a mafia, it's a Sopranos in Montana. Then it makes more sense. The reason I made this video is I had a conversation with somebody else that certain things I've learned, I wished I never learned. Not that I had it all figured out, but the breakdown of a story, how a story gets told. If you want to create a story, yeah, you need to know this stuff. It's very helpful. If you want to get someone like me involved in your story, and watch it till the end. But I wished I'd never studied this stuff as far as how a story's told. It's ruined me for every movie today. I mean, I'm watching old stuff from the 80s again. I watched the whole series of Rockford Files on Tubi a couple months back because it all made sense. It all made, but the stuff today because I know where it's going to go, I wished I'd never done that. Because instead of seeing something, hey, here's a new story, here's a new something, it's all a repeat. Everything I start 10 minutes into this, another repeat. It's just ruined me for movies. It's ruined me for books. Because now the whole time I'm reading it, instead of getting into the story, I'm critiquing the creation of this thing. That wasn't smart. Anyhow. Yellowstone, Mafia Land Boss. That makes sense. Love you. God bless.